So this is a question that we get all the time, all year long. A prospective buyer loves the home. It's the perfect lot. It's going to be a great place for their kids. They love the neighborhood. The school system's great. The bathrooms and the kitchen, they look fantastic. It's their dream home, but they go on the foundation downstairs in the basement and they see a crack in the foundation wall, typically a poured concrete foundation. And all of a sudden, all of that excitement kind of dissipates and goes away because now they're concerned about the structural integrity of the house. Are they buying a home that's going to be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of repairs now that we see a foundation crack? So we get this a lot, actually, and a lot of people are concerned because, obviously this is holding up the entire house. So, you should have a keen eye on this. And what we want to look at is what type of foundation crack it is. And is it repairable? Is it something to, further be concerned about? Are there much more extensive issues that are going on behind the scenes? And a lot of times it's hard to tell right off the bat because you're looking at a snapshot in time and you don't have an idea as to what it has done for a period of time. A lot of times these foundation cracks will be vertical in the concrete wall. They'll go from the top of the foundation down towards the floor, maybe off a corner of a window or off a beam, and they kind of go off at a very, vertical angle down towards the floor. Typically, they're going to be anywhere from, hairline thickness up to a quarter inch, sometimes a little bit more. And by and large, most of those are going to be called settling cracks or shrinkage cracks in the concrete. And those are the two most common types of foundation cracks that we'll typically see. So should you be worried about it? Should this just be ignored? The homeowner and the realtor might tell you, well, this has been here for 40 years. They've never had a problem with it. It's never moved. Well, that's fine. And that's okay for that conversation. But should it be something that just be left unchecked? And the answer is probably not. Foundation cracks, even though they might not leak on you and they might be more of a settling or shrinkage crack variety versus a structural crack, they typically will get worse over time with freezing and thawing cycles. So even though the foundation crack may not leak, the water that gets in there through the soil and snow and everything else will expand and contract with the freezing and thawing cycles that we have here. And because our heating systems are so efficient now, the foundation walls typically end up being a little bit colder than they were 50, 75, 100 years ago. So these foundation cracks will widen over time. And the biggest concern with these is that, one, they leak on you in a storm, and two, that they start to become more structural in variety where they open up too much or they start to twist on you now that it's a discontinuous wall. The good news is that most foundation cracks that are categorized in a settling or shrinkage crack variety are very easily repaired. We'll either drill at angles to the crack every 4 to 6 inches from top to bottom and inject a closed cell polymer resin material, and that'll bind the concrete together and then fill it from the inside to the outside, waterproofing it from the inside out. The other times we may use a different material that goes into the crack in a weave carbon fiber epoxy mesh that goes from the top of the foundation down to the bottom, and that'll give it strength across the foundation while also giving you waterproofing capabilities. And both of those would be warranty type services. So these foundation cracks are generally our bread and butter for what we do in our business. We see them in virtually every home in New England, and they're very easily repaired. When it goes into more of a structural crack, it needs a little bit further evaluation. Sometimes we may have to reinforce it with steel rebar or use a carbon fiber approach that increases the strength of the foundation. And in extreme cases, you may have to look at larger projects like underpinning a foundation or using piers to actually support the footing of the foundation. These are more uncommon typically, and they're not in every home, but they're usually pretty easily spotted with foundation issues. When we have photos or even videos or even a site visit, we can usually determine that pretty quickly. The final thing that we typically see is the unknowns, right? We don't know what the chemical composition of the concrete is. And in Massachusetts and Connecticut, there are pockets of areas where you have crumbling foundations. And these present very differently than anything else that we typically see in a normal settling foundation crack. But it takes a trained eye to be able to see this. And in fact, it requires usually a structural engineer and sampling analysis to tell you 100%. But that doesn't mean every single house needs this. It's very isolated issues. So should you be concerned about the foundation crack that you have there? Well, you should be aware of it, and you should know what kind of repairs might be necessary to stabilize the foundation and to make sure that it's going to hold up that perfect home of yours for years and years to come. The earlier you get the foundation crack, the less expensive it ends up being for repair. The more damage that occurs over time, obviously, there's going to be more repairs that are going to be necessary for this. So should you be concerned? Yes, you should be concerned. The other reason why you would also want to make sure that these repairs are done is because insurance companies and banks, as you go to buy the house, will note these. And if they're noted, sometimes there are going to be a requirement to be repaired before you have a loan underwritten or you actually get your insurance. So whether or not it's a concern for you, the seller, or even us, sometimes it doesn't matter because the bank will have an issue with it or the insurance company will have an issue with it. And for a small price, it's an easy repair and something that just gets through the process so you can move in and not have any concerns about actually living in the house and making sure that everyone else is appeased as well. So make sure that you consult your realtors, make sure you consult your home inspectors, make sure you consult your foundation companies to make sure that everything looks right, is repairable, and is easily fixed, just like most of them typically are.